And we knew how long the personnel meeting was going to be by how many Heinekens Coach Johnson had on the table.
This is an insane person. Like we saw her a couple weeks ago. She was in full head to toe, like commander's outfit.
Maybe the worst meeting I've ever been to, but tell the story. Tell how we lost.
When your livelihood depends on it, and whether or not you're going to keep getting paychecks or you're going to move or whatever, it becomes pretty real pretty fast.
Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. Welcome to The Family Business, a podcast about football and life from the perspective of a coach and his daughter. I'm Stephanie Turner, and I'm here with my dad, Norv, and my brother, Scott. And today we wanted to kind of talk about the life part of the football life and the family business. And that's something that I always get asked, when people find out the way that I grew up. The questions they always ask is, what was it like? What was it like growing up with, your dad as a coach? And did you have to move around? And where did you live? What teams was he with when you were a kid? And I think that's something that people are always curious about. And because it is such a small number of people, there are only 32 teams, 32 coaching staffs that actually live this life. I thought it would kind of be fun to talk about it a little bit. And I know, Scott, you chose to live that life in adulthood. We didn't choose it as kids, but you got into coaching and have moved quite a few times, and just moved last week.
Yeah. So, I think we talked about it a little bit on the podcast so far, but we haven't really directly talked about it. But, I was with the Jets last season and got let go. And then, I'm under contract with them for another year. And, there were some opportunities that came up and nothing really worked out. So we decided to move from New Jersey to outside of Pittsburgh, north of Pittsburgh, North Hills. It's a town called Valencia, but it's in the Mars school district, which is where my wife grew up, Robin. And so we moved out here. We moved into our house last Tuesday, and so my kids are Harry is 12, and he is in 5th grade, and then Rose will be 10 in a few days here, and she's in 4th grade. So they started a new school. Now, the one thing that's good is they got some cousins at this school, and so they're excited about that. And this is the same school that my wife went to. So we're around family, which isn't always the case. It isn't normally the case when you're moving around, going from team to team. So that's been good. But so we're here, and so that's, I think, why people have seen me on the podcast a little bit more. But also the thing about moving is, you got a lot of stuff, you got a lot of boxes, and you go through stuff and you find some interesting things. Like I have the 1989 Los Angeles Rams team photo here that
that's cool.
We have a familiar face on here. There's a lot of famous coaches, but my dad is here right there. If you can see that, I don't know how well you can see it, but he's in the picture there. And then also some good stationery from the desk of Norv Turner. That is, he left the Rams last year at the Rams was 1990. So this is a 35-year-old piece of stationery here.
I have one of those too. And I think we would take them from the office. Because when we'd go visit Dad at his office, we would be like, "Oh, can we take one of these notepads?"
Well,
and there's stacks and stacks of them. So
right.
It's like
Steffi has old game tickets. It was like $12.50 to go to a Ram game back then, or
something.
Yeah, it was something low, unbelievably low like that. It was crazy.
Right, but you find that stuff. I got the 91, and it's weird. Like you don't find stuff from every year. You just find random stuff, like 1991 Cowboys. That was your first year there,
right?
As offensive coordinator, and then it just takes you down memory lane. Like when I was when I would always go to training camp, especially in Washington, once I was about 12, and spend a couple weeks out there before my football season would start. And I was kind of a punk kid, and smart ass. And so I'd give the players a hard time and they would mess with me. And my birthday's August 7th. And that was like right before my football starts. So on my birthday, my 15th birthday, I got, the players decided to tape me up and cover me in shaving cream and dump water. They taped me to a chair. Then they taped the chair to a dolly and then dumped water and shaving cream all over me.
And so you're still laughing. That's the good.
I am.
Good part.
Yes, I was laughing in this picture.
And I know Brian Mitchell was the ringleader and right in the middle of it.
Of course,
help
yeah.
himself. That was
Brian,
his deal. Didn't they one day tape you to the goalpost or?
Yeah, they taped me to the goalpost one birthday. The other birthday, they taped me and they put me butt first into a trash can and then filled it with water and ice. There wasn't trash in there, but that was my 13th or 14th birthday when they did that. And then I remember there was another kid, and I don't remember I think he was a son of a scout or somebody that was there, and I can't remember, but they then they taped him up and they were threatening to throw him in the pool, and he broke down, started crying. And it was it was sad. Not everyone can take it. You know what I mean? I think he actually, they weren't going to actually let you drown, buddy. You can't, but it was, So
that was I think
stuff that goes on in the training camps and in between practices and there's, so that was part of it. And those are just a lot of memories. And like we were saying, I have some other pictures and stuff, but those are the ones that I thought were pretty.
Well, and the training camp thing too is the coach. Not every team does this now, but back then people would go and stay and it was longer. It was over a month.
It was.
And so coaches, and for people who don't really understand, our dad would always leave for training camp and he would be gone for several weeks, and all the coaching staff, all the players, they would go and live and do these very difficult 2-a-day practices, training. And they would, in this case, in that, when my dad was with the Redskins, the time that Scott's talking about, it was in Frostburg. Well, started in Pennsylvania, but then later in Frostburg, Maryland, they would take over a university because school would be out. They would take over the dorms and just live there. And I got to work a couple summers, but didn't get to be in the football department. I was in the PR department, which I didn't really like because I wanted to be with my brother, but I was a girl. And at that time, there were no women involved on the football side of things. The women only worked on the business side of things. And so my job would be doing things like cutting out pictures photocopying pictures of all the referees, putting their names there, so that my dad would be able to yell at them by name instead of just, hey, get over here.
Yeah,
but so he could learn the names.
23.
But things like that. And then sometimes we would, I was a part of the PR team where if players had appearances, at a local fan appearance or something, I would be with the PR staff as a 12-year-old girl. What was I doing? But I felt like I was helping and it was something fun to do. But I got to be there when the players were meeting fans or signing autographs, and I would ride back on the bus with them. And then my brother was working on the football side of things. Scott was doing, water boy at practice, getting tied up in the locker room, getting abused by 20-something-year-old men. In a fun way, I guess.
Yeah, but, no, it was always fun. It was nothing ever malicious. I found another picture, Steph, just so you could.
With our
puppy.
Showed
that with our puppy. It's amazing, but and just and then you talk about the lifestyle of it, unrelated to football. My kids are going through it now, meeting new people and starting in a new school. And we found, and this is crazy. Robin was I can't believe your mom kept all this stuff. But I found a thing, a folder, and it was letters from my 5th grade class in Texas that they wrote to me in Virginia from when I had started school. And they were, from
when you
Lee
moved,
Elementary School.
Moving there.
Yeah,
exactly. Because I had moved around this same time of year. So I finished the school year in Northern Virginia. And, I had this whole stack of like 20 letters that these
funny.
kids had I found. I was like, this is like, how do I still have this?
Right.
Because like it was probably in a box that no one had ever opened from like 3 moves, but we were in the basement and like we were looking for something specific and we didn't know what box it was in. So we were like we opened like every single box and that's when you end up I found all this stuff. And then I end up wasting all this time just looking through all these pictures, and Robin's like, what are you doing? I need to find. I'm like, all right, hold on. I'll get it, but funny. No, it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's people ask like, have asked me, what do the wives do? Like, what did your mom do? Like if your dad got a new job and that's another piece of it is like, and Robin, your wife has been through this, Scott, like I always tell people, like if a coach gets fired and hired or a promotion or whatever the circumstance may be, like that always happens typically in the time between the regular season or like the Super Bowl, like in that window of time, those changes are made. And then it's not like, oh, hey, okay, great, we hired you, we'll see you next season. It's like, no, the coach goes right away. The person that's working for the team goes right away, starts the job. And then the spouse, the wife, is there until she decides to move the whole family or until they all decide to move the whole family. And so like we typically did it as kids and our parents did it usually like over spring break or something so that we would have a chance to go start a new school, meet people. And that's like what you guys have done. But sometimes you wait depending on like, it happened your senior year,
right,
where dad left. And then obviously you wanted to finish the senior year. So we all finished the year. And that was fun. We lived with another coach's family for part of it because we sold our house and we lived with the Grimm family, which is 4 coaches' kids. Their dad is Russ Grimm, that we grew up with and love and had a lot of fun with. And Russ's ex-wife, Karen, invited us to come. And so Mom and me and my brothers, we all went and had a fun end of the year staying.
The Grimm kids were fun. We'd always have a kickoff party at the house, and we had a big long driveway and a gate, and then the pool was right another 20 feet down. And the Grimms, I knew the party started when the Grimms would get there because the 4 kids would jump out of the car and just run and jump in the pool. And probably didn't get out of the pool until it was time to leave.
Well, the first year, you had got all those fajitas and you set up the burners like right next to the pool, and then Russ did a cannonball and put all the burners out. So then the food was on the deck the next few years for the party after that. From then on out, it moved. The food moved up. But
cannonball doesn't work with the catering setup.
No, our pool, we had to add water to our pool after that party. Yeah. But no, I mean, we talk a lot about football being a relationship business, and I believe that, and we've talked more specifically about between the coaches and the players, but like there's so many other people, your families and everything that are involved in this, and this affects them a lot, and we've obviously chose this profession, but that's part of the consequences to go with it, and it's good and bad. I mean, moving around is hard, and it's hard on. As the kids get older, like they've established relationships, and but it also, like I look back on it as a kid when I moved, and we didn't move a lot, but we had a couple big ones, and you get to you meet new people and you see different areas of the country, and it kind of forces you to develop those social skills of how to fit in or meet new people, and being comfortable in groups where you don't necessarily know people, and that's part of it. And like I said, that's what my kids are going through right now. They went to school this morning. It's their second week in their new school, and they seem to be doing pretty well with it. But obviously, it's part of the challenge.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I look back, and I think by the time I was 18, I'd lived in Southern California, Texas, Washington, D.C., San Diego. Like kind of every region of the country we hit. And it gave such an understanding and like perspective and appreciation for those different regions of the country. Like I personally didn't feel like I needed that, like, oh, let me go off to college and live in a dorm and meet new people experience. And I didn't choose that because I kind of felt like I already had that. You know, I felt like I had been meeting new people and meeting people from different places. And that's something that I love, you know, about my life now is like when I do meet new people, I'm like, oh yeah, I lived there, or I've been there. I've been to your football stadium. Like, you know, I've pretty much seen the country through every football stadium. And it's a nice way as an adult to connect with people because you have that context.
Yeah, and when you're the guy who moved, you know, I'd go live in an apartment for the 2 months or whatever it was. I think of when we moved from LA to Dallas and had an apartment, and then our house wasn't ready. So when you guys came at spring break, we had another month and a half in a 2-bedroom apartment, and until we moved into our house. But from a coach's standpoint, you go in and there's a staff there, whether it's a new staff or guys that were already there, and you have built-in people. And you know, with an organization, there's your doctors are there. They send you to the dentist. Everything's kind of set up for you. Different, you know, when your family gets there. I think the natural thing is there's other coaches' families, and they have kids, or the women meet each other. They, you know, can talk about where to shop, where to get your hair done.
Before especially
then,
like before the internet, obviously you'd move to a new place and be like, mom would be like, I don't even know where I am. Like what? Like pull out a Thomas guide or something and be like, how do I get to the mall? How do I get to, where should I get my hair done? Like it was this, your coaches, families and players, like that was your community of information.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just like what you did. And then like I just thought of when you said the doctors, like we would utilize the team doctors obviously for everything right away. And I remember like someone was sick, you know, and you're just like, okay, we don't even have a doctor yet. We just moved here. Let's just go to the team doctor, go to the trainers. And it's like, oh, Stephanie needs antibiotics. And she's, you know, 8 years old, like 70 pounds, like whatever. And they're like, okay, yeah, I think we have some antibiotics here. Like, and they pull it out and it's like a pill for like a 300-pound guy. And they'd be like, okay, just cut it in 4s and give her a quarter every, like, I remember we'd get medicine from those doctors at different times, and it'd be like, what's the dosage? How many times do we have to cut this thing to give the right amount to the kids?
We've been laughing here because normally, you know, like you're saying, the coach, like me or, you know, dad goes ahead of time, and you're there for a few months before the family comes. You know what I mean? And so you've known people, like you get to know a couple restaurants, you know, all the coaching staff. So like you're the one person in the family that once your family gets there that actually knows people and like has friends or like coworkers or whatever, where this move, like, because it's just our whole family moved at once. And this is where my wife is from. Like she knows everybody and I don't know anybody. I mean, I know our family that's here, but like we've gone out to dinner like 3 times in the last week since we've been here. And every single time we bumped into somebody that she went to high school with. We're like, what? I'm like, what is going on here? That's you know, like, but it's like opposite, you know, it's opposite of what it's been in the past.
That's funny. Yeah, and the other thing that people always ask me is, so do you, like, who was your favorite team? Like, you know so much about football and like you grew up, like, so what's your team? And I'm like, you guys, like, I've always been a fan of whatever team as a kid, whatever my team my dad was coaching for. It's not like you're still going to be the fan of the team that fires your dad, or like after he leaves and he's at a new team, you're not going to root for a different team. And so I don't have a team. I have a team of whoever my family is working for and coaching for. And then the funny story of that was Scott. So when you were, I mean, you guys know this with the chicken guys. So every week my daughter dances at a dance studio, and there's a place that sells chicken, like rotisserie chicken and stuff. And so I usually get her dinner there. And so, it's the same guys working there all the time. And they would always, so you're friendly, like they know my order, I get my order. So one day when my brother was coaching for the Commanders, it was a Monday night and they had a Monday night game. So we were going to dance and then going to go home and watch the game. And so I had Commanders stuff on. And so they started talking to me about football. Oh, are you a Commanders fan? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh yeah, they play tonight, right? And so we said, yeah, we're talking about the game. They're Eagles fans, so it's a divisional thing. So they remember, you're the Commanders fan. And then we're talking about both teams, whatever. So that was toward, I guess, the end of the season. And then Scott, you got fired. Yeah. And I see them a couple weeks later after that. And they start talking to me about the Commanders. And I was like, so I'm not a Commanders fan anymore. And they're looking at me like, what? Like they're probably just thinking, this is an insane person. Like we saw her a couple weeks ago. She was in full head to toe, like Commanders outfit. And now, and I was like, yeah, I'm not a Commanders fan. And they were like, oh, okay. And so then I had to be like, well, okay, here's the thing. Like my brother was actually coaching for the Commanders, and that's why I was a Commanders fan. And if he's not there anymore, like I'm not still going to be a fan of the team. And they're like, oh, okay, well, who were you a fan of? And I was like, I don't know yet, because I don't know where he's going to go. There's a couple options. And one of the guys happens to be a big Raider fan. And so he goes, well, I hope he goes to the Raiders. And I was like, yeah, I don't know where he's going to go. And then you did end up going to the Raiders. So then I came back like a week later and I go, you are never going to believe where like they probably think I'm insane. But I was like, yeah, I'm actually a Raider fan now.
Yeah. No, it is true. And people don't understand it. I remember when like Robin, like I said, we're Pittsburgh. I mean, they're diehard Steelers fans. And
right.
It was at your wedding. And I had just got hired, or we had just got hired by the Browns, and Chris's cousin, what's his name?
Jimmy.
Yeah. Jimmy. We were waiting, like we were at the rehearsal, and Jimmy was like, how are you gonna root for the Browns? You've been a Steeler fan your whole life to Robin, and Robin's like, it's not that. It ends up being not that hard. It's not like it does when your livelihood depends on it, and like whether or not you're gonna like keep getting paychecks or you're gonna move or whatever. Like it becomes pretty real pretty fast, and you realize that like the old allegiance. It's actually this is not us, but this is a great story that Todd Haley told me one time, and I'll tell it because it's worth telling. He was his dad was a Steelers scout forever, so he grew up in Pittsburgh, diehard Steelers fan, and he was the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, and they were in the Super Bowl, and they were playing against the Steelers, and he told me his two best friends were like, "Will you get us tickets to the Super Bowl?" He's like, "I'm not getting you tickets to the Super Bowl. You're going to just go there so you can go there and root for the Steelers. Like, this is the biggest game of my coaching career, and you guys want tickets so you can go root for the Steelers." And he's like, they were like, "No, we promise we're not going to root for the Steelers. Like, well, we're neutral stuff. We want to go support you, and he said that that was the game that was like a great game where just the Cardinals went down and took the lead, and then Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball to Santonio Holmes made that unbelievable catch in the back corner of the end zone to beat him like at the end. So that was like right at the end of the game. And then so Todd Haley was on the field, and he said he was walking off the field and he's like walking into the tunnel, and he just looks up into the stands, and he says his two buddies, one guy's got a Roethlisberger jersey on, the other guy's got like a James Harrison jersey on, and they're just like high-fiving each other, like going crazy. And he's like, he was just like unbelievable. But it's like, he's just like, he said he was so mad. Like, it's a story he told me at the combine one year.
That's so funny.
But it's so true. I mean, it's so true. And we all have, like, that's an extreme example, obviously, because it's the Super Bowl, but we all have stories like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's a friend that's like, I won't root.
Well, the big thing, like Robin's family, I mean, that that is like Steelers fans
Yeah.
are hardcore, and there's certain cities. I just ran into somebody last weekend. We were out and he was from Pittsburgh, and we were talking about being from Pittsburgh and like being a Steelers fan, and just like there's a culture around certain cities and football, and it is like unbelievable or unfathomable to think that you would not root for that team. And then like when you guys were at the Browns, Robin's poor family was like, what are we going to do? Like
they were all, everyone was pretty good about it.
No, I know.
And Robin's brother was good about it, but he was like the hardest one. He was still like, you know, and I remember like, and then, we've
obviously they always want what's best for you guys, but it's like so ingrained in the culture that it's hard to.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. But no, there's definitely like a lot of those things. I mean, I remember somebody that it was like when we were at the Panthers that we played the Bucks, and Robin's like cousin came to the game and brought her friend, and that person ended up being like a Bucks fan and like cheered when something, and Robin got so mad, was like, you cannot do that here. Like, you cannot do that like here. And the guy was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm so sorry, you know, and like, but like, and Robin, like, if you know her, she's like horrified that like someone would like get upset about
be
it.
Upset about
right, for sure. But yeah, I mean, no, there's definitely a lot that goes into it from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of the other things that people always ask? I mean, I know there's always the sort of question, not as often, but the question of like, oh, well, what do coaches do? Like, what does your dad, like, especially when we were younger, like, does your dad have another job? Like, what does he do in the off season?
Yeah,
like people who really didn't know about football.
That's the big one. Or like, do you live here? And it's like, yeah, we live, like, this is where we live. Like, for coaches, like, we get a week off here and there, you know what I mean? But like,
and that's why I think people don't realize, like, players do have more of a true off season where they can go and live somewhere else. And so players do tend to have, like, their family will be based wherever they want their family to be based sometimes, and then they'll live during the season. But coaches can't really do that. I mean, there are occasions, like if kids are about to graduate high school or like situations like that a family won't move with the coach. But I would say pretty typically you move and you have to be in the city, in the town wherever you coach, because you get like the week after the Super Bowl or like whatever your playoff situation is, you get a break there, and then it's right into draft prep, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, whenever the season ends, like, let's say you don't make the playoffs, like, you normally work for a week after that where you kind of do your, sum up the season and kind of do some self-scout and stuff like that. And then, coaches will get some time off. And then, it's you're looking at players for free agency or reevaluating your scheme. You start looking at the draft. You got the combine, whether or not you visit pro days or bring players in. I mean, and then again, like at the same time, like every year's new. So like as the coaching staff's like preparing their installs or like, all right, what are we going to do scheme wise? When these guys get back and for the players, like you talk about the players, like their collective bargaining agreement, like the coaches are not allowed to talk to them from the day the season ends until, you can talk to them, but you're not allowed to like talk football with them until they report back, which is if you're on a returning staff mid-April, and if you're new staff, you get an extra 2 weeks. So at the beginning of April, but like, so for those guys, like it's easy for them, to live elsewhere. And a lot of players like live elsewhere too, for like tax purposes, in certain states, obviously you're going to be able to keep more of your money. And that's where like some teams, those Florida teams, the people they do live there. So like their players, because they're allowed to go in and work out in the facility and they can do whatever, but you're just not allowed to have any, kind of interaction with a coach, because of, the collective bargaining.
They could use the facility still to work out.
Yeah, they can come in and they can work out with the strength coaches. Like the strength coaches can work out with them, can do that, but that's totally That's totally voluntary. And that's where a lot of guys, like I said, like, in Jersey, for example, like it's like some guys live there in the off season, but a lot of other guys, like they'll go down to Florida and train, you know what I mean? They'll have a house down there, or maybe they'll rent a place. It depends on what part of their career they're in. So a lot of guys go to Florida, a lot of guys go to Southern California, not because it's cheap, but because it's a great place to live, obviously. And there's a lot of training, and you can train outside, year round. In Vegas, when we were in Vegas, we had a ton of players that lived there, because it's not a bad place to live, and the taxes, there's no state income tax, and it's a great facility there, so people would do that.
Well, one of the big things, what you said, the season ends, whether you played a playoff game, whatever those circumstances were, and then usually there's a period where everyone goes to the Senior Bowl, which is kind of like a coaching convention, but you do get your first look at quite a few of the draftable players, guys that are playing in that game. And then shortly after that's the Super Bowl. And then, like you said, you're back at it. You're back in the office working. But the one thing that is, because the draft gets so much hype and free agency gets so much hype, the real important thing is that the coaches evaluate your players, the guys that played the season for you, and most of them are going to play next year for you. You have some free agents to deal with, you have some drafts. So let's say you add 10 new players, but for the most part, the guys that played for you are the guys that are going to be playing for you next year. And a big part of what you're trying to accomplish is figure out how they can get better. What you're talking about, the off-season weight program, running program, understanding once we get into the coaching part of OTAs and all that, build on their understanding of the systems that you're trying to implement. And really, it comes down to having a plan for each of these players, because that's how you're going to get better as a team. They need to get better as players, and then if you can add a couple difference makers, obviously you get better. But the players that are returning starters, that are probably going to be starters next year, you need to find a way to get them better. And that's a big part of the offseason. But what we tended to do, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, we would break up the day, half working on football. Let's say you got in from 9 to 11:45 or something, and you'd work on your system, look at tape, all those different things. And then after lunch, say 1:30, you would be able to go off on your own and do your projects, whether it's a project of player development or if it was evaluating college players. So that's kind of the way you split up those days in the off season. And most places, a couple times a month, you're taking a Friday off, which during the season, obviously, you go forever without a day off. So it helps. And then you have some of those Fridays where you're in there, but there's not a whole lot getting done. A good friend of ours, Drew Petzing, who's
the office coordinator for the Lions.
Call them Petzing Fridays. That meant
Petzing Fridays. You just
we're fake.
He's going to be mad at us that we exposed his Petzing Fridays on this podcast, but that's okay. I'm going to visit him soon in Detroit. It's only a 4-hour drive from here, so I'm going to go over there and check out some of their practices.
Well, he's one of the guys we have targeted to get on here. We want to hear about everything that's going in Detroit. Some of these teams are getting a little tightened up now and not letting their coaches talk, but we're going to work on that one with a few others.
We'll see. We'll get some old stories with him. Well, that'll be a good one. We get him on here.
Yeah, we always have to. He's always Drew Petzing, first and last name, because we have a brother Drew. So if you just say, "Oh, I was talking to Drew," then so he's always Drew Petzing.
And speaking of Drew, he got the other end of it. Scott was off to college and then coaching, and Steph went to LA start her pursuit of an acting career and all the different things she's done. And Drew was in the 6th grade. And I remember sitting at the table. We'd been at San Diego one year, and it worked out that I didn't stay.
The offensive coordinator here in San Diego.
Yeah, I was an offensive coordinator, and we were at dinner. I go, yeah, we're going to move to Miami, and Drew, his face almost landed in his plate. What? He was in a great school. He loved it. And I said, well, it just worked out this way, Drew. I'm sorry to do it to you. So we're in Miami for 2 years. Then we came back and we're at the Raiders for 2 years. And I'll never forget that look on his face when I said, yep, we're moving to Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got the brunt of it. He dealt with was what my kids have been dealing with the last couple of years, going back and forth across the country or going all over the place.
Couple years.
Yeah, and the one thing about Drew, because starting with his Washington probably is where most of the friends that were long-term friends, and then all the different places. He's been to more weddings than any guy in the world. He's going bachelor parties and weddings.
Yeah,
because he's got friends everywhere. I said, just look at it from this side.
You were in San Diego for one year, and some kid he went to 6th grade with. He's going to his wedding. In like a week or
really
coming out. Yeah, Tommy Morris, his 2nd wedding.
Yeah.
So he's going to his wedding. But going back to what you were talking about, Dad, as far as like the schedule in the offseason, that's exactly what we would do. We would meet offensively, and that's really been we did it together, but then I did it in Washington or other places, and then pretty much it's been consistent. And you work on scheme in the morning, and then in the afternoon, it's like you're saying, whether you're looking at free agents, looking at draft picks, or doing your own personal projects, coach will be on their own. And sometimes, your morning gets canceled, so you got to go in the afternoon with the scheme stuff. But that's pretty much, what we've done. And that week directly after the season, that's where, the teams do a lot of their self-scout. All the position coaches will write reports on all their players, writing their evaluations. You have meetings on those things. And that's where I believe the good teams, that's where the biggest difference is in the NFL is the players that do a good job of evaluating their own roster, or vice versa.
The coaches that evaluate.
Coaches,
yeah.
Yeah. And not, it's all, and it's not, again, I'm going to be pro coach here for a second, but it's not the coaches all the time. It's the personnel guys too. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, there might be a draft pick that the personnel people think is better than he is, because they want him to be good because of where they drafted him, and everybody wants everybody to be good, but like the teams that recognize mistakes and cut bait the fastest, those are the teams that normally you'll see them continue to improve. You know what I mean? It's right. The guys that want to, for whatever bias it is, try to hold on
to somebody because they think they could be better.
Yeah,
they're trying to prove
you fire the coach. Yeah, you fire the coach because you're going to bring somebody else in that's going to get them right. You know what I mean? And more often than not, that doesn't necessarily work out. And the coaches a lot of times too, like veteran players that are kind of a safety net for the coach because they know they're going to do it right, but they could also be, sometimes those guys like that could be progress stoppers too, because there's a comfort level of that coach that he's going to get, maybe that player gets a little bit more playing time over a younger, more talented player because you don't want to have the mistakes, but then you're stunning that younger player's development and it ends up hurting the team. You know what I mean? So though, it goes both ways. I'm not going to just pick on the personnel guys. The coaches, have their favorites too. Here's another good story. Do you remember? So this is a bad memory, but we can laugh about it now. So we lost to the Seahawks in the playoffs.
It's
Blair
like
Walsh missed
you're
it.
reading my mind. I was gonna,
Blair
I was
Walsh
just gonna say
missed.
maybe the worst meeting I've ever been to. But tell the story. Tell how we lost.
Wait, where? This is where?
In Minnesota.
Minnesota?
Yeah, so we're in Minnesota. It's -6 degrees. We had played Seattle earlier in the regular season, and they were just they were a lot better team than us. They were towards the end of their Legion of Boom, but they still had a really good players on defense, and we played them in the regular season in Minnesota, and I think they beat us 49-7 or 35-7, and our touchdown was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So we didn't do anything on offense. I mean, it was about as bad of a game that we ever had. So we're like, all right, we're playing these guys again, and this is playoffs, and we were 11-5, we won the division, so we got to play them at home, and
I remember.
And it was -6 degrees. I mean, so no one could do anything, and we were up 9-0. We were up 9-0 in the fourth quarter, and then
-6 when the stadium was not built yet.
Yeah, it was outside.
University of
it was
Minnesota.
We were
So it
outdoors.
Dad was in the press box. I was on the sideline.
Yeah.
So long story short, they made a couple crazy plays in the fourth quarter. They took the lead 10-9. We had a 2-minute drill down the field, and we're set up to kick a 27-yard field goal for the win. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to beat these guys. And we had a great game plan, is just trying to control the ball, and we knew the weather. And he just misses. I mean, he misses as bad as you could possibly miss a kick. He never even had a chance. So we lost. And everybody, devastating loss. I mean, everyone is just like totally crushed.
Yeah, when you're getting ready to kick a 27-yard field goal, I remember I was in the press box standing up with getting my papers together, just sticking my head through the door just to confirm that it went through. And I hear someone said he missed it. I go, and then you look at the TV and he yanked it.
And we, I mean, it wasn't even close. So then, that was on a Sunday or whatever. And then Monday, we didn't do anything Monday. We were in the office, but then Mike Zimmer's a head coach, and he was like, we got to get going on next season. I want to do all our player evals. Like, we got to read all our player evals, so we did it starting Tuesday, and it was about as negative of a meeting or situation I've ever. I mean, we hated everybody, but everyone was mad. Everyone, and it was like, and I remember Dad saying, like, and I don't know if you said it out loud to everyone or you just said it to me or some other people, were like, this is the worst thing we could possibly be doing right now is having this meeting. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, it was like the most toxic, just negative, like, it's funny now, but it was horrible. And it was like an all day thing, you know what I mean? So it was just like, oh my gosh. And everyone was like, I mean, it was devastated. I mean, it's not like, we would have had to go to Arizona and play them, and they were obviously a good team, but
but it's still, it's not.
You want to stay alive. You want to
lose. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to lose, and you definitely don't want to lose because you missed a 27-yard field goal at the end of the game.
And you definitely don't want to do a personnel meeting 2 days after that.
2 days after,
just still in your mouth,
right?
And we're talking about, whatever. We're talking about the offensive line. I mean, Adrian Peterson led the league in rushing, and I just remember Zimmer being like, what are we doing with the run game? I mean, we have all these negative, right? Like, he led the league in rushing. Like, what do you like? Yeah. We got, we had a second-year quarterback in Teddy, so we had the fewest pass attempts in the league. So we didn't, we were very efficient offensively, as far as we'd never turned the ball over. We were like the best in the league in turnovers. We were like the fourth best in the league in fewest penalties. We're fourth in the league in rushing. Adrian actually was first, like, as an individual player, he led the league in rushing just for him. But we didn't have a lot of big time explosive plays in the passing game. Like, now Teddy had some good moments at the end of games to put us in position to win games. But as far as like your stats, like, and that's where
looking at it on paper.
Well, I do know this. In the fourth quarter, we threw the fewest passes of any team in the NFL. We were ahead in 11 games. Yeah. And, we leaned on Adrian. We leaned on the offensive line. Yeah. So you're not going to have a lot of passing yards, but Teddy
we had the fewest
second-year guy. Teddy was as efficient and as productive as you could ask for what he was being asked to do. And he played great in fourth quarter. He played great in close games.
Yeah, we were at Soldier Field, and he led a 2-minute drive to go down and tie the game up, and then we got the ball back, and he led it, and we went right down the field and kicked a field goal with no time left. And he was great when we needed him. But we had the fewest pass attempts, not even the fourth quarter, in the league. I mean, in any team, you know what I mean? And that's where most of your yards are going to come from, the passing game. So that was a little down. So we were talking about, did he take a step backwards this year? And I mean, the things that were being said in this meeting were you just wanted to crawl under the table. Like, oh my God, we were 11-5. We won the division. Like, it's a second-year quarterback. Like, there's a process and a development. And we actually felt great about Teddy. And then unfortunately, leading into the next season, that's when he had the bad injury. Hopefully, speaking of Teddy, we're trying to get him on here as well. He's in Detroit too, with our friend Drew Petzing, as we're talking about this. But yeah, no, I mean that was brutal.
But anyway, your point is there is an evaluation period where you talk about your team, and some of the biggest mistakes are where you let the wrong guy go or keep the wrong guy. You have to make those decisions, and obviously, Jimmy Johnson was known for his, the trade he made, and then his evaluation of college players, and he would obviously trade back and get extra picks, and we'd have a lot of picks, but he's the best I've been around of, after a fair amount of time, say this guy, he doesn't really fit what we're trying to do. He's not what we thought he would be, whatever the reason, and he would trade him or release him. So like you said, so some coach didn't fall in love with him and say, hey, we got to have this guy. He knows what to do, whatever. And Ernie Zampese said this to me once when we were getting rid of a player. Someone says, well, someone in the room said, what if this guy goes up there and goes to the Pro Bowl next year? And Ernie says, you know what? You can't worry about it, because he's not going to the Pro Bowl with us.
Yeah.
He's not going to play for us. He's the fifth guy at this position, or he doesn't do the things we need him to do. And usually the guys that it was clear would go and struggle. And on the other side of it, in my last couple of years with the Chargers, we didn't re-sign Vincent Jackson. We let Sproles leave in free agency. Tolbert another year. Those guys the year before we let them go, they all scored 10 or more touchdowns. And I kept saying, you guys keep getting rid of these guys that score touchdowns. That's what you're trying to do. But Sproles went on and played 7 more years. Vincent Jackson went to Tampa and led their team in receiving for 4 years. He was MVP for 1 year. I mean, so many things, and you can't let guys like that leave.
Yeah, and that's where I think we've said before, like I think it's trusting the coaches that you've hired to evaluate and to say, this is who I want on the team, and this is why. Like, you fought for Vincent, you fought for Sproles to stay. Because they were difference makers on those teams, and you knew that they were going to go and do that somewhere else. And I think that's a good point, like that Ernie said. I mean, there's always the what if I pass up on this and it's something and it ends up being good, or what if we let this guy go and he ends up being good? But you have to trust the instinct of he's not doing what we need him to do, and he's not fitting in whatever we're doing. So let him go be somewhere and be the guy somewhere else if he's going to be, because he's not for us, not living with that fear. And I think tying back to your story of Minnesota, Scott, it's just clear of these decisions cannot be emotional decisions. The evaluation of players, you can't do it the day after you lose the play. You got to take a minute, you got to look at things. How do people fit on a team? How are we putting the best like packaged together to go be successful. And I think that is relatable to all different types of life and business, like in filmmaking and directing. And like, there's always a point where, you know, sometimes you go to the movie and you see like a 3-hour movie and people leave the movie and they say, I liked it, but it could have been 30 minutes shorter, or, 2.5. I liked it, but I feel like it could have been, cut by 20 minutes or whatever. And directors, writer directors like me, but will not want to cut something. Like, you'll shoot something and then you'll have a 2.5 hour, 3-hour movie, and people get so emotionally tied to the thing that they created that they aren't able to have this objective opinion and say, yeah, we don't really need this scene. It's not doing anything for the story, and people are going to lose interest or whatever. And I think like that's something I always try to have, that objective perspective of like not being so married to, but I wrote this thing and I liked it and I want it in here. Well, no, if people are telling you it's like dead weight, cut the dead weight. Or like if it's not flowing, like same thing. You can't be like married to or tied to, but I really thought this guy was going to be good. We should keep him, because I thought like, obviously you can root for people. Like Sproles is a great example. You knew there was something in Sproles that was worth developing, and his character showed it, and his skill and ability and all that. And it ended up being, but like sometimes you also know this guy isn't going to be the starting quarterback, or this guy isn't going to ever be the player we thought he was going to be. And that's tough, I would think.
Yeah. No, and there's the flip side of it too. Like, Adam Thielen that you guys had on during the season. I mean, he was in 2004. I mean, he had been on the team the year before we got there as a practice player, and then in 2014 he was like our 4th or 5th receiver. He was on all 4 special teams, and he very rarely played. But he on offense, but every time he go in the game, it seemed like the ball would go to him, and then. The kind of the same thing happened the next year in 2015, where he was productive whenever his number was called. And then I remember going in that offseason, we had the conversation. We're like, hey, when we go 11 personnel, we got 3 receivers out there. Like, we got to have Adam out there with the starters. And I remember, we were like, all right, yeah, for sure. And then we were doing it. We started doing it in practice. And then Zimmer, he was like, hey, why is Thielen with the starters? Why he didn't need to be out there with the starters? Why is he? And then that next year in 2016, and where he actually got an opportunity to play a lot of football, he had almost 1,000 yards receiving. And then after that, the year after that, he had like 1,500 yards when that we had left after that. I mean, I was there in 16. You were there for, 16 for half the time. But I mean, that was the same thing. Like, this guy's right there. And every time, and we're talking about in practice, anytime he gets an opportunity, he made the most of it. But he was from Mankato State. He was undrafted. He was a tryout guy. You know what I mean? But you're looking at it, and it's like, look, this guy, every time we throw him the ball, like he makes a play. And a lot of times people just bypass those players. You know what I mean? Because they're not, whatever, because they're
not the obvious choice.
Well, yeah, and things happen. It was what Scott was referring to earlier. We had a number 1 draft pick at receiver who was there, and everyone wanted him to be a real good player, and he's a good athlete and good runner, but he wasn't a polished receiver. We signed a free agent, and that was a speed guy. So there's. I remember being asked, why'd you throw that ball to Thielen? You could have thrown it to Cordero, or you could have thrown it to Mike.
Yeah.
So, well, he was in, and he ran a good route and caught it. So that's kind of what we're trying to get done here. He might have done better than the other guys could have, and that ended up being the case. And I'm glad you brought that up, because he's a great example of trusting what you see, and that was one where Scott, Drew Petzing, they kind of jumped, were rally behind Adam, and would point out the things he was doing and how good he was doing them, and you find a way to use a guy. One of the things we always say, you do something really well, we're going to find a way to use it in practice and in a game. And that's important for the players. It's a great motivator for them. You go run a great route, you'll be the guy who's in when we're running that route. So it's a motivation to, get as good as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
the one thing I'll say is training camps changed so much. We were talking about it earlier. Steffi alluded to it. We used to go away for 6 weeks, and you would leave. Training camp in Washington was a 3-hour drive. In Dallas, we would go to Austin, about 106 degrees every day. But you'd go to a university. We went to St. Edward's in Dallas. We went to Frostburg State, and you would have a dorm room. You would all move in. Players would be in there, and you were there for 6 weeks. I know this is a first for me. When we went to Dallas, they had rigged a fence completely around the facility where the cafeteria and the dorm, and they had 24-hour security there. So
people couldn't come in.
People couldn't come in, but the players couldn't
leave
either.
Yeah.
That was bed check was at 11, and the meetings got done about 10:30, and we'd go in and have a staff meeting and talk about the next day of practice, or talk when we'd have a personnel meeting, and we knew how long the personnel meeting was going to be by how many Heinekens Coach Johnson had on the table. If he had 6 Heinekens there, we knew this was going to be a little longer. If he had 2, it was going to be quick, practice schedule, get out of here. Right. That was our gauge.
You think Michael Irvin ever slipped the security guard a $100 bill as he was leaving the gates of after bed check?
If he did, he probably had a van with about 8 guys in it right behind.
Yeah, honestly.
All right. Well, this was fun. A little down memory lane.
Yeah.
Well, I think it gives people a little bit of understanding of, like you said, the lifestyle that you live, and not only training camp or that, but your family moving, all the things that you go through. And I think you guys handled it as well as any kids could. And I think it's been positive for all 3 of you, that the experiences you've had.
Yeah. You guys found, you were cleaning out some stuff. We found the picture of the last game at RFK. Remember us standing on the field? When
we pulled the sod up and we brought it home with us.
Yep.
Steffi just moved and actually found
the bag,
some of the sod that was in a bag.
Still had the paint on it from the end zone.
96, the last game played at RFK. Pretty amazing. Yeah. And we did beat Dallas on that game, so that made it all worthwhile.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right.
Nice seeing you on Zoom, Scott. And we'll wrap this one up. Thank you guys for joining us. Remember to subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll see you on the next one.